Hi, my name is Michael Trout, and I'd like to tell you about a project I'm working on. The project is called the eSingularity Initiative. The goal of the project is to flatten global education. That's right. To flatten global education so everyone has access to the same level as education as everyone else. Now, you may be thinking, how are we going to do this? Well, I'm going to get to that. But before I get to that, it's important for me to talk about some other events that impacted human society and culture, which I think will put things into perspective. And the first such event happened in 1551, where a gentleman called Talik al-Dim came up with the idea of the steam engine. Now, you may be thinking, I thought Thomas so-and-so invented that in 1629. Well, he did, but he probably took the invention from someone else, or the idea had been around for quite some time. But the problem was, obviously, in 1551 was a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift that kept people from realizing the technological advance that it represented. And it took another 70 years for that paradigm to shift. Now, why do I tell you about this? Well, if you would have asked him at the time, what would be the impact of the steam engine, he couldn't tell you. Just as if you would have asked Thomas in 1629, okay, what's going to be the impact of your steam engine, he couldn't tell you. All he knew was this is going to be a better way for doing the job at hand, which was, back then, was labor, and this is going to be better. And the challenge we have now is, all I can say with Education 3.0 is that what I'm proposing is going to be a better way than how we're learning right now. And what I'm proposing, we have all the education, all the technology in order to make it happen. So, what is this eSingularity event? The eSingularity event is when all learning comes out of one tap, or out of one plug, or out of one portal location on the internet. And there's an event, the closest thing that I can think of that will represent the reaction to eSingularity, I think, is really the Sputnik. And I really think the way that really Russia, the West, responded to Sputnik is probably going to be a very similar response to the Western's response to eSingularity, because the reality is what I'm proposing is going to disrupt e-learning in such a massive way that Web 2.0 e-learning is going to probably cease to exist as we know it today, because there's going to be no point of it. Because every e-learning event, material, will be able to be done and supplied through Education 3.0. And everything that we're going to supply through Education 3.0 is free. I'm going to say that again. Everything we're going to supply through Education 3.0 is free. So whether you want to get a certification in Microsoft, whether you want to get your Cisco certification, whether you want to get a GED, whether you want to study math to whatever level, whatever you want to study science, whether you want to be a doctor, whether you want to be an attorney, whatever it is that you want to do, you will be able to do so. And it's not going to cost you a dime to do it. Because really, and you may be saying, what? How can you do this? Well, one is by One reason for making it free is we help eliminate the competition, because it's like Wikipedia. Can you imagine another Wikipedia showing up? Well, unless they can basically do it a heck of a lot better than Wikipedia, the answer is no. And the reality is no. There's a chance, however, that it could happen, but most likely it's not going to happen unless, you know, what I would argue is maybe what we will come out with would be a Wikipedia, complete video mashup of Wikipedia could be done. So, how are we going to flatten education, you're probably wondering. But before I get into that, let me refer. It's, you know, what I described to you, in a way, is going to sound like, well, heck, you really don't know what you're talking about. And it may. Because in reality, I'm going to use another analogy, what I'm describing is combining certain technologies that haven't been combined before in such a way that hasn't been done, that it's very difficult to describe it as a layperson that I am to you as an audience. And it'd be the same way if you went to the folks who did the technology behind The Curious Case of Benjamin Button and asked them, how are you going to do it? And the reality is, if you would have asked them, like you're asking me, how are you going to flatten global education, they're going to come back to you the same answer. We don't know. However, we know it can be done. And we kind of know what we want to do with it. And I'm the same way. I know what I want to do with it. I know what the end result's going to be like, but the technology to get us there, that's going to be done by a group of specialists. We're going to sit in a room with me, and we're going to debate it and discuss it, and we're going to come to a solution on how it's going to be done. So, with that said, let me talk about what it is that we're going to do.